Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the last onX Hunt 101 of the year and our last masterclass of the year altogether. So just wanted to run through a couple of housekeeping things while people are getting signed up and getting logged in here. Your audio and video are turned off, so no worries there. If you have noise in the background or anything, we can't hear you. If you do have questions during the class that you'd like us to answer, drop them in the Q&A box down along the bottom of your screen. There are two options there. There's comments, and then there's chat, and then there's Q&A. Put them in the Q&A. We have a couple folks from our customer support team answering questions in there and then passing some along to us as well. The Q&A feature is just easier for them to be able to kind of answer your questions in a timely manner. In the chat box, they just kind of get lost because that's just a running list of chats. This class is being recorded, so if you can't stick around for the whole thing or you want to watch it later, no worries. If you got to dip out early, that's fine. If you want to review it, it'll be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. We usually get those up sometime in the morning. And then tomorrow evening, you'll also get an email with a link to the recording included in there. And finally, we will be doing a giveaway of some onX swag at the end, so stick around for that. We'll have the link posted in the chat towards the end of the class, so you can get signed up there to try to win something. We'll draw those winners tomorrow and send you a notification if you've won and get that shipped out to you. My name's Jack. I'm going to be your host tonight, and I'm joined by...
I'm Tori. That's all I got.
Just Tori?
Yeah.
We are wearing our best Christmas duds tonight, especially for this one.
We didn't plan the red. It just kind of happy coincidence.
It just happened.
Yeah.
So, anything I'm forgetting on the housekeeping?
Yeah, probably.
Probably. Moving on, what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to start with a basic rundown of the different onX membership levels. So from basic, premium, and elite, what each is, what it gets you, what the value is in upgrading a membership. We're going to run you through kind of the ABCs of the app. We're not going to be able to cover everything. This is a 101 class, so it's going to be designed to help get you into the app, get you turning on layers, marking waypoints, saving maps, kind of the basics to help you jump in and then give you a framework for going in a little bit deeper. And then we'll have some time at the end for some Q&A. We did take some questions from when people registered. They sent us in some questions. We've got some of those we're going to address. And then any that come in during the class, we'll try to get to as many of those as possible.
And throughout this, as we're going, if you have something that's specific to your accounts, you know, you're having difficulty with a certain thing, maybe you can always email us, help@onxmaps.com. If you have, general questions about the product, that's a good place to put those in the Q&A area. But if you have something specific about like a billing question or something that you're seeing on your end from device to device, it might be easy to shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com.
Great point. So first off, different membership levels of onX. We really have, there's 4 membership levels. First one is the trial membership. That's what you get when you download the app or you go to our website and you create an account. You're set up with a 7-day trial. Now that basically mimics our premium membership. You get access to the property ownership information for one state and any of those other state-specific layers we have for that state, which we'll get into layers in a little bit. When your trial expires, you go to a basic membership. Now, basic membership, you're able to use the app. You're able to see the satellite imagery, see your location, mark some waypoints. I think you're limited to, is it 25?
I think that's right.
25 markups, waypoints, lines, things like that. But you're not able to see any of the property ownership information. To be able to see that, you want to go to either a premium or an elite membership. So premium membership gets you access to those layers for one state. You've got 1,500 markups is the limit of what you can save there, which is a lot. I haven't reached it yet, and I've been using onX for over 5 years. And then you also get unlimited offline maps, or I should say, we don't limit you as many offline maps as you can save. It's how much your phone can save, right? Your storage there. Then if you want to go up to the elite membership, that gets you all 50 states plus Canada. So we'll touch on that in a little while, but we're adding information north of the border as well. And then the Elite membership also is a really cool program we have called Elite Benefits. Gets you access to different services and different discounts. We'll touch on this at the end, but you're getting access to discounts on binoculars, boots, hunting clothing, ammunition, things like that. And then free services like draw odds through Top Rut and application information through the Hunt and Fool, and some other stuff. So that's the basic rundown of the membership. And if you are sitting there and you're saying, man, I have a membership, but it's acting like I don't, that would be a case where send us an email, help@onxmaps.com. We see that once in a while where maybe you have like 2 email addresses, you're just logged in with a different one than the one you purchased under, or maybe you signed in through an Apple ID or something.
Right.
So if you're saying, man, I have Elite, but it says I'm basic, 9 times out of 10, that's what's happening.
Yeah, and that's a little bit confusing too, because some people say like, well, my Google's under this email.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean when you created the account that didn't that wasn't the account that, or the email that you used when you originally signed, made that account. But
Right.
maybe shoot us an email, we'll help you out.
So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share from my phone. I'm going to pull up the app on my phone. Just give me 1 second here to do that.
Feel like you need something prepared here.
Yeah.
Fill the silence.
So this is the onX Hunt app on my phone. This is what you'll see. We're going to dismiss that for now. This is what you'll see when you download the app and you log in. You're going to see a screen that looks somewhat like this. That blue dot there in the middle is my location. So if I can zoom in, you can see there's the onX office, Missoula, Montana. You can tell it's the onX office because we've got the big X on the top. If you're not seeing your blue dot, like if I move away here, there's no blue dot on my screen. The first thing I would do is that little button in the lower right-hand corner that looks kind of like a crosshair. Go ahead and tap that. That's your location button. That's going to pull the map back to your spot. If you get some sort of pop-up when you tap that, that says onX does not have permission to access your location, you do need to grant the app access to pull your location off of your phone or off of your iPad, off of your device. If the app doesn't have permission to pull that, we can't show your location on the map. So sometimes people will deny that because they don't know quite what it means. That's what it's for. And that's how you're able to see yourself on the map there. If I tap that blue crosshair button one more time, that puts me into what we call compass mode, or some people call it heads up mode. This is a question we get a lot of times because people say, man, why doesn't it show what direction I'm facing? So this is how you do that. You can see as I'm moving my phone around that the map is spinning, and that blue cone in front is
like a flashlight.
Yeah, it's like a flashlight. It's what direction I'm facing. So this is great if you're walking down a trail and you want it to be showing what's coming up on the trail. It makes it a lot easier if you know, hey, I've got to take this left fork or this right fork. If you're a passenger in a car and you're navigating, if you're driving, we recommend, stay safe and follow all the laws of your state and everything with using devices. But if you're navigating or something, it's great to have that there instead of it being north up all the time. Makes it super slick for.
Yeah, I think it's great. That way, whatever's left is left on the app.
Right. You don't have to do the mental like, well,
Right.
I'm driving this way and I need to go that. And then to get out of that mode, in the top right corner, you see that little compass there. I just tap that and it brings me back to north up. Anything on location I'm forgetting?
I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, let's hop into our layers. In the lower left-hand corner, you see this button that says Hunt Map Layers. I'm going to tap on that. And it's going to bring up this Map Layers menu. Now you can see layers are grouped into different collections or folders is the term is what I usually call them, folders. So I have Minnesota, I have Montana, South Dakota. If I swipe up, you can see Canada, current conditions, all these. We'll jump into some of these in a bit. But that is where, if I go to Minnesota, I just tap on that folder. that's going to show me the layers for Minnesota that are available to me. Your state may look different because we have different data from different states. So some states we have, I think Montana, do we have like 11 layers?
It's a bunch.
It says right on there, I can pull it up. But Minnesota, you can see we've got 6 different layers here. Every state is going to have private lands, government lands, and possible access. And I believe it's 48 states have some variation of hunt layers. It might say game management units, it might say hunt districts. Everybody calls it something different. I believe it's Illinois and Indiana don't, because theirs are all based on county.
Yeah.
So you also have Minnesota walk-in access, which is their walk-in program. So their private lands enrolled in this program that you can go hunt. The landowner works that out with the state and allows public hunting. And then also the forest disturbance there. So every state's a little bit different. You might see different layers in your state. It's just because each state, has different government agencies that have different data they make available to us. So that's your state options. Jumping into
one thing I was going to say too is what Jack's showing us here is an iPhone. So Android may look a little bit different. Instead of having the toggles, it may have just an on or off where you just tap on the thumbnail. So just in case you're following along and you're going, wow, mine doesn't look like the screen does. It could be because you're on an Android phone, which is totally fine. That's what I'm rocking is the Android. So mine looks a little bit different than what's on the screen now.
Yeah. So if you're looking at your state and some of the layers aren't turned on. So let me actually get to Montana here since I'm in Montana. I'm going to turn off my private government lands, swipe that menu down and go zoom in on my map. You can see I got the satellite imagery, but not much else. There's not a whole lot going on here. When I turn those layers on, that's when I start to see that information showing on my map. So the private lands are going to be an orange boundary with a white name inside. And if you're not seeing the name, like in this little parcel right here in the middle, actually it's 2 parcels. It's because it's so small, you've just got to zoom in before you start seeing the name show up. Bigger parcels, they show up farther away. That's just a way for us to declutter your map. So if you're saying, man, it doesn't show names, try zooming in, and then that's going to show you those names most likely. And then our public lands or government lands are all color coded. So you can see I've got a couple different colors right here. Forest Service lands are going to be green. State lands are blue. I believe this is, so city land is kind of this yellowish green. BLM lands yellow. National parks are purple. Military installations are like a pink color. Yeah. So everyone's a little different. But the nice part is you don't have to memorize that. You don't have to be like, all right, this is green, this is blue. Because the best way to find out what a piece of land is, to find out more information, is to tap on it. If you're on a computer, you can just click on it. So I tapped on that green parcel there. If I swipe this menu up, I can see it's Lolo National Forest. That chunk is 67,000 and some odd acres. It'll tell me if there's different rules and regulations. I can find the weather. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But what I wanted to highlight there was just if you don't know something about a parcel of land, right, you can just tap on it. Private land works the same. I tapped on that private parcel. I get the owner's name. I get their tax address. So what that means is the address where they get their taxes sent. So it's where they get their mail, basically, because a lot of parcels of land, nobody lives there.
Right.
It might just be in an empty place or something. So it tells you where the owner lives, basically. It's not the address of that parcel necessarily.
And we'll provide that tax address if it's provided to us. So there may be some areas where you're not seeing it. It could be that just information wasn't provided to us.
Right. Our map, our data is as good as what we can get typically from the local county. That's a question we get quite often is where does this data come from? When possible, we source it from your local county tax assessor's office. Some counties don't have that digitized yet. So we're getting more every year, but there's a few counties in Colorado, some in the Dakotas, the Northeast Maine, I know is a tough spot to get data out of. And most of the time it's a funding issue where your county government might be a couple people, and they might not just have the funds to hire a GIS person to digitize that data and make it available.
I would just picture just a cluttered room with like overflowing files
file
and just paper
cabinets.
everywhere. Yeah.
I picture that scene from Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie, where he's got all the strings going across.
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
Yeah,
too.
a little bit.
I'm with you.
Anyway. So that's querying the map. That's public and private layer. The next one I wanted to talk about, that's the wrong button. Next one I wanted to talk about is your hunting districts or hunt areas layers. This is a one we get questions on fairly often, especially in the spring around application season in the West, and then in the fall. In Montana, we have different hunting districts for different species. So let me back up here. You can see my hunting districts layer. I tap view options, and I can now change between an antelope hunt district, bighorn sheep, if I ever draw, which I'm not holding my breath, bison, black bear, deer, elk, lion, right, and on and on. Wyoming is the one we hear about this the most because they have different deer units, different elk units, different antelope units. So if you're looking at this and you're saying, man, what Game and Fish Department or DNR department has showing on their map is different than what onX is showing, it's more than most likely the sublayer on your hunting districts or hunting areas just needs to be changed. So that's the first thing to check there. Not every state has this. Some use the same hunt zones for every species, but a lot of them do, even if it's different for waterfowl hunting districts or things like that, spring turkey, fall turkey, stuff like that.
And again, for Android to get into that, you tap on where it says layer settings. That's how you're able to get that. With the iOS, you can see it indicated where it says hunt districts, and it has that kind of that stack of papers looking, saying, hey, there's a lot more information here.
Awesome. So we're going to set the Montana layers aside now and scroll down to some different ones. So you have all these different collections. And the first one I'm going to go into is current conditions. Now, all of these other folders are nationwide. So the current conditions, land and access, road trails wrecked, trees, crops, cover, those are nationwide. So that's why we don't have, for example, a wildfire layer is not going to be located under your state. That's a question we get sometimes too, not so much in December, but in August and September, like, hey, I'm looking for wildfires in Oregon. I don't see the wildfire layer under Oregon. It's because it's a nationwide layer, so it's in that current conditions folder. So the wildfire layer, I can turn it on and off, just like all the other ones. I pretty much always have that one turned on because I want to be able to see where the fires are. And I think there actually is one showing on the map here. Yep. So there's one kind of northeast of Missoula here. I believe this is probably like a prescribed fire or maybe like a fuel reduction fire. So that's what they look like. It's that red icon. And if it's a true like wildfire that's not under control, there will be a red shape on the map that shows the perimeter of the fire. There's not really many of those going on. At least I couldn't find any right now. So I don't have a great example for you. But next August, you'll be able to find them. You can also click on this icon and it'll tell you that this is a 59-acre fire. So it's probably a controlled burn of some sort, or they're reducing fuels or something. You can also see when our source last updated the data. So it's been a week since they changed the data on this. You can see the last time that we checked for updated data. So again, something we get in the summer a lot. They're like, hey, when was this data last updated? You can see, well, we checked today, but our data source didn't update, hasn't updated since Tuesday or whatever day it is there. So that's a way for you to see, how fires have progressed and where they might be burning currently. There's a bunch of other layers in the current conditions. We're not gonna be able to touch on all of them, but the nice part about onX is you can't really break this.
Right.
So one of our biggest pieces of advice, if you want to see what these layers look like, turn them on, turn them off, right? There's nothing you can do that can't be undone. So if you turn on the drought data, you can zoom out and see what the drought conditions look like. Then you can say, I don't want that anymore. I go back in and I turn it off.
And while Jack's kind of showing that, from a zoomed out level, pretty common question, especially when people are kind of new to it, is they'll call us up or email us and say, man, it doesn't look right. Almost every time it's because one of these nationwide layers are turned on. It's the precipitation layer or the forest visitors map, one of these layers that are kind of nationwide that as you zoom in, it kind of goes away. So yeah, don't be afraid to go in there and turn things on and off. Like Jack said, you're not going to break it.
Yeah, that's a question we get, like, why is my map all blue?
Yeah.
And you pull it
It's
up.
all boxy and weird.
Right.
Is it raining? It is. I think we figured it out.
Precipitation. So moving down, you're gonna go to land and access. There are two layers here that I always have turned on. The wilderness areas, which I believe should be turned on by default. So that is going to show those federally designated wilderness. So this is like Big W wilderness, right? North of town, we've got the rattlesnake wilderness. You can see that kind of hatching on there. That's showing you the boundaries of those areas. So you may or may not have those types of areas in your neighborhood. And most of them are kind of out west in Alaska and stuff, but something to keep in mind. And then the other one I have turned on is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas. It's duck season. There's a lot of refuges that you can hunt. So this is one that I have turned on. If I scroll down, actually, I'm going to go up to this one here. This is a refuge north of Missoula on the Flathead Reservation. If I tap on it, it's going to tell me it's the Nine Pipe National Wildlife Refuge, and there's no hunting allowed on that refuge. You can tell that because it's got that red cross hatching on that. So that's a refuge that you can go visit, but you can't do any hunting on. If I go south of town here, there's another refuge that does allow hunting. I can see because it has the writing on there. It's a hunt unit. This one allows archery deer hunting and waterfowl hunting. And each of these has their own separate rules, and they can be pretty complicated, admittedly. So what you can do is tap on the map. I can see the Lee Metcalf Refuge. If I want more information about hunting there, maybe they only allow it certain days of the week. Maybe there's only, maybe there's certain methods. There's all kinds of restrictions. You can tap that more info, visit website there. That'll take you to the Fish and Wildlife Service website. We'll link you right there, and that'll tell you the information you need to know. So that's kind of an insider tip. If you want more information about something, tap on the map. A lot of times we'll have the pertinent links already found there for you to take you right to the source of truth, right? Fish and Wildlife Service, they set the rules there. We're going to send you right to them so that you get the most accurate information.
That's how I find information about hunt units anymore. Instead of trying to go into the websites and trying to figure out, certain regulations, I just use us. It takes us right there.
That's what I do too.
It's super awesome.
Yeah, so Tori mentioned hunt units. If I tap from, you see at the top there, it says overview. If I tap over to hunt unit and scroll down, I can go to where it says regulations 2022. That will bring you right to the Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks regulations booklet for the sublayer you have turned on. So this would be the deer and elk regulations, or deer, elk, antelope. It's kind of confusing because their regulations booklets are deer, elk, antelope, but the zones are deer, elk, lion.
Right.
So that'll take you right to their online, their PDF of their regulations booklet. Super quick and easy to find that. I keep tapping offline maps.
Jumping ahead.
I am. Well, we're going to cover two more real quickly here. Roads, trails, and rec. So this is where you can see the hiking trails in your area and the motorized roads. These are the layers I always have turned on: trails, trail slope, trail mileage, motorized roads and trails, and recreation sites. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. If I go over to the M Trail in Missoula here. If you've been to Missoula, you've seen the M up on Mount Sentinel. There's all kinds of great hiking up there. All those squiggly lines on my map are the trails. And you'll notice they're color coded. So that's the trail slope layer I have turned on. If it's green, it means it's relatively flat. If it's red, it's steep. So it goes from green, yellow, orange, red, the steeper it goes. So you can see this Fire Road trail here is pretty flat. This green one kind of right down the center. If I go up to kind of the spine of Mount Sentinel, now it's turned red here. So that one's really steep. I haven't hiked that one.
Mm-mm.
I don't have much ambition to.
No.
I've hiked this, some people call it the Z Trail.
Mhm.
That one's still plenty steep for
A lot
me.
of switchbacks.
I've
yeah.
done it,
Mhm.
but that beer tastes really good at the end.
Yeah.
After doing it,
Well,
you know, it's a little steep for a guy of my stature. Anyway, enough about that. The other one is the motorized roads and trails. That's more my speed,
yeah.
motorized. So these are going to be these purple and white lines on your map. Now you're going to see them mostly on public lands, mostly on national forest. And that's where the data comes to us from, mostly is from the Forest Service. So they're responsible for these roads. And a lot of these roads will have open and close dates. That's a question we got in the registration questions. How do I know if a road's open or closed? We can't tell you for every single road what's open or closed. Sometimes the data is just not there. But for these purple and white ones, we can. So I tap on the road, I scroll down, I see the name of the road number, how long that segment is. It tells me what vehicles are allowed on it. Some of these will be like dirt bike trails that are just for dirt bikes or just for ATVs. Can't take a car down them. This one is overland. That means, you know, a full-size car, high clearance 4x4s, side-by-sides, ATVs, dirt bikes. So this one, I've driven this road. I've seen people driving Honda Civics down. It's what's really important here is the open and close dates. Before I knew onX had this, I got caught on some of those where I drive up and the gates closed.
Gates closed, yeah.
Because especially in Montana, they close a lot of them seasonally, a lot of times around hunting seasons.
Yep.
Where archery season starts September 1st, August 30th, they close, or they'll close them right before rifle season. A lot of times they close off areas for winter range for elk.
Yeah.
So always double check that before you head out. And then a lot of times in the spring when I'm turkey or bear hunting, I've got to check because some don't open until June. Some don't open until May. You know, it's a lot of times like the 1st or the 15th of the month. A lot of them are open year round. Doesn't mean you can drive down them because a lot of times there's 2 feet of snow, but legally you can. Last collection I want to touch on real quickly here is our trees, crops, and cover. Now this one is pretty big. There's a lot of different layers in here. One I always have turned on is the timber cuts. This is going to tell you logging activity on Forest Service land. So it's going to tell you where logging took place. It's going to show you the perimeter. And it's also going to tell you when and what type of cutting, if it was a clear cut, if it was a selective harvest, if it was thinning, fuel reduction, whatever. So that one's super important for, I like chasing grouse, I like chasing elk, I like chasing deer. They all like to hang out in those areas. The historic wildfire is one, I only really turn it on when I'm scouting because it can clutter the map up a little bit. But everybody knows morel mushrooms. The year or two after a burn, great place to go where it was burned, you know, to find the mushrooms. Elk love those areas. That's where the fresh green grass is, bears, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So this yellow shape you see on my map here is a fire from 2017. And again, I can tap on the map. It's going to tell me information about it. It's the Low Peak fire. Pretty big, intense fire here from 4 or 5 years ago. It's going to tell you when it started and the acreage. So they're all over the country. How far does our data go back? 10, 15 years, I think.
I was just thinking that. I think you're right. I think it's about that.
Mid 2000s, late 2000s is how far our data goes back. So it's even useful to find like, oh man, a fire went through here 10 years ago. There might still be a lot of deadfall in here.
Right.
This might be awful hiking. You might say, oh, that's great. It's going to keep other people out of there. That's where I want to go.
Right.
I won't be there, but
you're probably not going to see me.
You might be able to go there. So that's the historic wildfire layer. And then we're not going to get into all of them, but the crop distribution and the wetlands layer. Actually, I'll go real quick here. Crop distribution is really cool. I'm just going to go to Minnesota. You can see with the crop distribution layer turned on, when I zoom in, it's tough to see what we're looking at. But those are the different crops that were planted last year. So when I zoom in, if I tap on this brown piece, I can see that soybeans. I tap on the yellow, I can see that as corn. So we get this data in about February of every year. So this data right now is from 2021. In February, we'll get the 2022 data. We're not able to get it the year it's actually growing because that's when they're doing the surveys and they've got a lot of land to survey. But I know in central Minnesota, in this area, it's pretty usually going to be a 1-to-1 crop rotation. So this was corn in 2021. Very good chance it's going to be soybeans this year. If it was soybeans last year, probably going to be corn this year. Out here in Montana, we've got a lot of alfalfa. That tends to stay alfalfa for a number of years. So it's a way, if you can kind of figure out the crop rotation in your area and know, hey, if it was soybeans last year, it's corn next year, or if it was, I don't know, barley or wheat, what they might be planting the next year. And it's a way for you to see, all right, this guy tends to plant a lot of sunflowers. That might be a place I want to knock on the door and see if I can go dove hunting. Or this guy plants a lot of wheat, might be a good place to go chase Hungarian partridge, stuff like that. And then what I didn't think I was going to use a ton of, but I use all the time, is the wetlands layer. That's this blue coloration here. And it's going to tell you if it's herbaceous wetland or woody wetland. So is it more grass, cattail sloughs, stuff like that? Or is it more alders or willows or even like a cedar swamp or something like that? So I've been using that for pheasant hunting a lot lately to try to find cattail swamps and stuff.
I haven't used that. I'm gonna have to get into that.
Yeah. And then similar to our crop data, I know I said I was going to make this fast, but I think this stuff is so cool, is our tree distribution. And we've got a bunch of different tree layers. I'm going to turn on my coniferous and deciduous and go up to northern Minnesota here.
And again, that's just like what we talked about, where you're looking at sublayers, to change the hunt unit. Same thing with trees, where you'd be able to go in there and change that.
Yep. So for coniferous, deciduous, I've got them both turned on. If I tap on one of the colors, I can see this area, this color is larch and tamarack. In Minnesota, we call them tamaracks. So here they call them larches. So that's tamarack swamp. If I move over, tap here, that's aspen stands, aspen and birch. Northern Minnesota is probably mostly aspen. So your area, you might see oaks, maples, hickories, pines, spruce, hemlock, whatever. Cool way to find, all right, I know the deer in the deep snow in the winter are going to be hanging out under cedars or hemlocks. Show me where those are. I'm a grouse hunter. Show me where the aspens are. I'm deer hunting in the south. I want to find the oak trees. Okay. So again, all that can be found in your map layers, and you can just turn them on and off with the touch of the button there. So I wanted to just do a quick check to see how folks are feeling about layers. I'm going to pop a poll up on your screen here. We'll have that up for 10 seconds or so, just to kind of check and see whether Tori and I explained that well.
And one thing I was going to mention too is, as we're kind of going through this, if you have a trial or you have premium, you're going to see one state. If you have elite with all 50 states, this is how you scroll down, and that's how you'd add those additional states if you wanted to see them.
Good point. I forgot that. Yep. In the map layers is where you would go to turn on your additional states or turn them off. Well, it looks like most people feel pretty comfortable turning layers on and off. We did our job.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right.
It's always good to see. So I'm going to pull that poll down, and then we are going to move on. So the next question we get a lot of times is, all this stuff is great, but I don't hunt where there's cell service, right?
I like the phone call where I get where I go. We don't have cell service. Like, if you've ever been to Montana, when you get out of town, there's places in town that's spot.
Places in town, I barely get service. Yeah. So I hunt Western Montana, Northern Minnesota. There's no cell service either of those places, unless Western Montana, maybe if I get high enough up on the mountain, I can do all right. But generally speaking, no service. Even if I'm going to an area where I have service, I'm still going to use what we call our offline maps. So right below that map layers button in the lower left-hand corner, it says offline maps. I tap on that. there's going to be a button that says new map. So I'm going to tap that. And this is where I'm able to download a portion of the map, save it to my phone for when I don't have cell service. So I'm just going to move kind of east of town here. Let's say I want to go hunting this area. Whatever's within that red box on my phone is what's going to be saved on the map. So with one finger, I'm just moving the map now with one finger on my screen. I can get that lined up just how I want. Then the next step is to choose my size. You can choose a 5 mile wide map, a 10 mile wide, or 150. 90% of the time, I recommend 10 mile wide maps, at least in the West here, because the big map, which I do save, and I'll touch on that later, doesn't have very high imagery resolution. So when you zoom in, the map's going to look blurry.
I'm definitely coming back into service. Like if my plans change, I'm not going 150 miles without getting into cell service where I can't save it in.
Probably not. Yeah. So I use the 10 mile because I get good coverage. It's a big enough map. And I'm also able to zoom in and see the imagery. If I'm hunting a real small parcel, like when I go hunt kind of our family deer camp in northern Minnesota, I save a 5 mile map because we've got our stands set and they're really within about 2 miles, north to south, 2 miles about as far as they stretch. I know where we're going to be hunting. We're probably not going to go outside of that. I save a 5 mile map. So if you've got a hunt camp and you're hunting, you're 40 acres, you've got a section of land or something, 5 mile map's probably the way to go.
And it's okay to save a 5 mile and then do a 10 over that. Jack's going to show us that in a second here.
We'll touch on that in a bit. At the top, I can rename this. That's something I recommend doing. I'm just going to put this as test. I think I have 4 of them in there now, or 3 of them. So I'll name it test 4. That way, when you go back later, I have over 200 maps saved on my personal account on my phone. That way I can keep track of them and I know, okay, I've got a map saved in this area. Or if I need to delete some to free up space, I know which ones I'm deleting easily.
In a quick hurry, and you just want to update just that one.
Right.
You're not updating a bunch of them. Yeah.
Right. So then I hit the save button and you can see that green border there is kind of faint. When it's done downloading, that will turn bright green. And that's my saved map. So that's how, after the fact, I can go back and see also where I have saved maps. If I zoom out, you can see a bunch of my different saved maps here, those green ones.
So I was gonna say on the screen, you can see a giant box that's got a bunch of them. So that's his 150 square mile maps. Then we got kind of the most boxes that we see are the 10 square mile. And then inside, just right in the center of the screen there, you can see that Jack saved a 5 square mile map too. Now there's some other maps that you saw that were kind of candy cane, very seasonal.
Very seasonal.
It's always going to be that this red and white. If you see that, what that's indicating is Jack has saved that map. Maybe he saved it on his computer or another device, but it hasn't been saved to this device yet.
Yep.
Which is very important.
Yep. So if you have an iPad that you like to use at home and then you take your phone in the field, you can save all those maps on your iPad, but it doesn't automatically download it to your phone. So those are going to show up. Your account recognizes, hey, somewhere somebody saved a map on this account, but you still have to go in and download that map to each specific device.
Probably the most common cause, maybe around this time of year too, is maybe people are getting new devices.
Yes.
So you sign in and this is saved to Jack's profile. So if he got a whole new phone, new setup, signs in the same email, same password, all his offline maps would be this candy cane stripe. So he'd have to go in and resave those.
So how do we do that? If I go into my offline map menu, and I'm just going to swipe it up so it's full screen here. You see, I've got a couple different looking icons on the left side. I have this map I saved in the Bob Marshall Wilderness with a green check mark. That means it's downloaded onto my device. I'm good to go. The one right below it has an arrow pointing down. That means it's not downloaded to this device. To download it, I'm just going to tap that arrow. You can see it kicks off that download, and it's going to be done about by the time that I finish this.
It's
sentence.
usually pretty quick.
Timed it perfectly. Nailed it. So that's how, if you get a new phone for Christmas and you log into your account and they're all candy cane, it might take some time if you have 200 like I do. You just got to go down and click those and that'll download it for you.
Good chance to kind of maybe clean up some of those 200 offline maps you got
So
saved.
you can have my offline maps and you pry them from my cold dead hands. I spent a lot of time on those. You'll also notice on some of these, it will say update available. So what that means is as our mapping team has pulled in more data, that something has changed within that box. Okay, so most often it's going to be parcel data has changed, new land ownership. It could be new, changes to hunting units that typically happen spring and summer.
Mhm.
Could be road changes. It could be new imagery that we got new satellite imagery. To update it, there's a couple things you can do. You can tap those ellipses to the right of the name and hit update. That's going to download it. Or this map 6122, which again, that's why I recommend renaming these because I have no idea where that map is. If I just tap the green circle with the check mark, that's going to download that as well. Something we hear quite often is, how often do I have to update this? As much as you want. I have some maps in some areas where we're pulling new parcel data like daily, that just about every day I can update it. I don't do that. Right? I'll do it before I'm heading out to hunt this weekend. I'm going to go out Saturday. I'm going to try to get my new bird dog on some pheasants.
Nice.
I'm going to update my maps. We probably won't get any. This January, February, March, when I'm not hunting as much, I probably won't update them very often.
Right.
So, and if you don't update, it's not a big deal. Your map is still going to function. It's not like oh man, it says update available, I can't use it. It'll still work. You just might have some information that's not accurate there. Most of the time, that's not going to be life or death, especially if you're hunting public land. That doesn't change as often. If you're hunting an area where you have permission, hopefully they're going to tell you if they sell the land.
Right.
So you'll know that you're not finding out by looking at onX that, oh, John sold his farm.
Right.
So that's offline maps. We did mention the sizes a little bit. I talked about the 150. When I do save those is, let's say I draw, maybe next year, hopefully I can draw a pronghorn tag again in eastern Montana. So if I zoom out to eastern Montana, I can hunt most of these units with the tag that I apply for. I'm not giving out a secret. That's pretty common pronghorn hunting area.
Mhm.
And I am not good at pronghorn hunting. So
They're fast.
they are fast and they can see really good.
Yeah.
So I can hunt a lot of these units with this tag. I'm going to save a 150-mile map because
Might be doing a lot of
a
travel.
lot of pronghorn hunting sometimes is some road time.
Right.
Driving from different areas to try to find them. So if I don't have a 10-mile map saved in that area, at least I have something, right? So especially if I'm, sometimes pheasant hunting, you can drive around a lot to different little areas and you might say, man, all the spots I wanted to hunt, there's nothing there. We still got time left. Let's go somewhere else the rest of the day. Don't have a 10-mile map. At least I have a 150. I can still see the roads. I can see the hunting districts. I can see the land boundaries. That information is all going to be there. What you're not going to have a lot of is the satellite imagery. You can see some, but it's not going to be super detailed. But at least you're not without, the most important thing of the boundaries to stay legal. So that's why I saved the 150s. I saved 3-4 of them to cover most of Montana, the areas I hunt. So at least I have something if I go out of my intended hunt area.
Sure.
Yep.
So just to kind of push along, because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Some of the best practices that we use is, when I get to my place, I'm putting my phone in airplane mode. That way it's not using, a lot of signal. It's not trying to search for that Wi-Fi while I'm out in the woods. So your location services, those go off satellite. Those don't go off cell towers. That's why when we save these maps, your location from the device is layered right on top of this map. So if you forgot to save something, like Jack said, you go somewhere, you're still going to be able to create content, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But yeah, you want to make sure you're saving maps before you get out of the house.
Before we move on, I just want to pop up another quick poll on your screen just so we can see how well we covered the, being able to save offline maps. So you want to take a second, let us know, yep, I'm comfortable saving offline maps, or no, I need more help. We'll give that about another 5-10 seconds or so and then move on. And if you do have questions on any of this stuff that we're talking about, Our website has a lot of great tutorials,
Mhm.
and you can always send us an email to help@onxmaps.com. Our customer support team's happy to walk you through
Absolutely.
all of that stuff.
Yep. And I maybe we blazed over this at the beginning, but your membership includes access for phone, tablet, and computer. So as
Mhm.
long as you're signed in with the same email, same password, you can access this on multiple devices.
Yep. So let's move on to marking our map up using our map tools. So if you go along the bottom, you see we're at offline maps. We're going to skip over my content for now and go to tools. I tap on that, and you can see we've got a bunch of different tools there. What I think is the most important one, the one that most people use the majority of the time, are the waypoints. So that's where you can see those different colored, looks like a balloon on my map. Those are all waypoints I've marked.
So people call them pins,
Or pins, yep. There's
flags.
flags. There's two ways to mark those waypoints on my map. The first one, I'm going to get out of that area here so you can see, is if I hit add waypoint, you see that puts a waypoint in the center of my screen. Okay, so that one put it kind of up by the Rattlesnake Wilderness here. I can adjust that if I want to. So what I'm doing now is I'm just tapping on the screen with my finger. And the more I zoom in, the more precise I can be. If I want to be right on that spot, right, I can zoom in, get it where I want it. Again, like your maps, I recommend renaming these. So I'm just going to name this to Jack's Lucky Spot.
No, don't go away your lucky spot.
I've never set foot there.
Yeah.
I can
So
change,
you say.
so I say, I can change the icon, which is something I do all the time. I try to have as few X's on my map as possible because it doesn't mean anything to me. If I see a buck there, I'm going to choose the buck icon. If I see a sheep, or if I see Sasquatch, I somehow broke it and saved both. That's a new one to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit save. So I got Sasquatch there. I can also later go back in and edit this if I want. So what I did was I tapped on the waypoint. I hit edit. Now I can go change the icon if I want. I can change the color, which is another thing I do. The coloration is really underrated for me. I do this because I've got over 1,000 waypoints. So what I do, and everybody does this different, find a system that works for you. There's no one right way to do this. I mark mine by species. So my elk ones are brown. My bear spots are blue. Waterfowl's green. Some people do it that way. A lot of people at the office do it by year.
Mhm.
So they'll say, all right, 2019 was yellow. 2020 was red. 2021 is blue. So that you can see year over year, like, oh, there was a rub here in 2019. There hasn't been since. Versus the kind of the downside of mine is I might have a rub icon there, but I have to tap on it to see what year it was from. Different methodologies. Just
That's the
find
cool
what
thing
works for
about
you.
it. Like, yeah, you just make it work for you.
The second way to mark a waypoint is to go into tools and hit mark my location. What that's going to do is put a pin where you're standing. So I use this 90% of the time when I'm out hunting. So you can see I already had one marked at the office, but I must have been in a different room because here I have the red X. So again, I'm going to go back. I'm going to change this. I'm going to mark it office. You can edit these at any time to whatever you want. So don't think that you only get one shot at it. But that's how you do that.
I've seen some people get confused with that mark my location because as they're moving, they're scouting, they've moved the map to, another part of the state
Yep.
and they're hitting mark my location and they get frustrated and they contact us saying, man, whenever I create a waypoint, it's not going where I want it to. More than likely, that's the cause where we're just hitting the wrong button.
Yep, we hear that. And we also hear people saying, man, it's not putting a waypoint where I am. And that's because they may be using the add waypoint button instead of the mark my location.
Yeah.
So I use the mark my location. We got some registration questions of how can onX help me find my way back to the truck? When I park my truck, I mark my location. I change the icon to the truck icon or the ATV, whatever I'm driving. I might change the color. And then that's saved on my phone. When I'm at the end of the day, I want to get back. I can pull up my map, I can find that waypoint, and what's cool here, let me find one just as a demonstration. Let's just pretend this is the waypoint I want to get back to. I tap on it, I scroll over, I hit go to waypoint. Now it draws a line. Now this is as the crow flies, tells me I'm 2.35 miles away. And that's the direction I've got to go. So what I can do then is I will pull up my compass mode and see, man, I'm going the wrong direction. I've got to turn around and head that way. And I'll try to keep that line kind of in the center of my cone. Now I'm going to deviate from it to go around deadfall or swamps or whatever, but that's just an easy way for me to find, all right, I'm generally going in the right direction. This is the quickest way to get there. In the interest of time, we're going to leave waypoints right there. There's a few other things you can do there, but we've got to move on to some of our other tools. We've got the line distance tool. Now this one's pretty cool. Again, I went into tools, tapped line distance. Let me move out here. You can see I've got a crosshair on my map. If I hit drop point, it's going to put the first point in my line there. Hit it again, and I can drop as many points as I want. So the line distance tool has a lot of uses. Some people will use it to kind of mark out a path to see how far it is to go around to an animal or to camp or whatever. Some people will use it to outline. I've heard of people using it for fencing, outline their yard to see, all right, what's the perimeter of my yard? How much fencing do I need to buy? I've used it as a rangefinder, where my rangefinder doesn't go much past 400 yards. Not that I'm shooting past that, but I might see an animal across the ravine, across the gully, across the holler. What are the other
Coulee.
I love coulee. I love all the different terms for a depression with water running through it. But I can see, all right, I can sometimes look at my aerial imagery and see, all right, it's all timber and there's one little patch of grass. I can't range that on my rangefinder, but I can find it on onX. I can find my location. I'll drop a mark at my location. I'll run that line to that open, that opening in the timber, drop the point, and it'll tell me 840 yards or whatever. So I'll say, all right, sweet. Then I can kind of plan out, hey, if I get to here, that should be within my shooting distance. Or if I can cut off this much area. Cool way to do that, especially if you don't have one of the new high-powered rangefinders that can, range find the moon or something.
Right.
That would be sweet.
Yeah.
The next tool I want to talk about is the area shape tool. So it looks very similar to the line distance. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So this is how you can find just how big a shape is. So this is cool for planting food plots, is kind of what I hear most people using it for. I've got this field. I'm going to put the area shape on it, or maybe it's just a part of a field because I want to plant corn in one part and rye in another or wheat in another. And I can find out, all right, it's 10.46 acres. This is how much fertilizer I need to buy. This is how much seed I need to buy, right? And then like all of our markups, I can color code this. So I'm going to make it yellow because that's where I've got corn planted. People will do that to color coordinate their different food plots, different hunt areas. Again, it's totally up to you what you do with this and how you use it. And kind of our last, doesn't quite fit in our tools, but we consider it kind of a map tool, is the tracker. So if you go to the right of tools, tap on the tracker button. Let me actually get back to my location here. I hit start. And you can see that my dot turned red. That means the tracker's running. I'm sitting still, so it's not moving at all. But if I were driving or if I were walking, my dot would be moving and it would be drawing a dashed line along the map. So that's everywhere you have traveled.
Always makes me think of the old family circus when Billy goes running around the backyard where he leaves a breadcrumb everywhere he goes.
Or Hansel and Gretel.
Or Hansel and Gretel.
Or Hansel and Gretel. So that's another way. I do this most of the time I hunt. And I do it if I'm hunting a new area and I don't want to get lost.
You leave breadcrumbs?
Yes. Pigeons following me all over the place.
Always.
I don't understand it.
It's weird.
So that's how I can find my way back to the truck, because I've got a track. Even though I have the waypoint there, it might not be the best way to go, just straight to it. It might be, off a cliff or something.
I use it for bragging too, just so I can look and be like,
Yeah.
all right,
I did.
man, I put a bunch of miles on.
Yes, I do that too. So it's a safety thing. I do it when I've been pheasant hunting lately and I'm walking in a field and I can see, oh man, I missed this spot. We didn't check this place at all, or, to see where you went. If I got into some pheasants, then it's nice to have for the next time. Like, hey, walk this route. This is a good way to go.
I dropped some gloves one time and that helped me find them.
What did I just lose? I lose stuff all the time. I can't remember what I found, but I found something. It was a hat or gloves.
Good thing with the elite benefits, we got discounts for stuff.
That's true. The last thing I wanted to mention for the tracker is it's great for blood trailing. So when I shoot a deer, if I shoot a deer, I go find where first blood is. I'm usually going to mark a waypoint there, but I'm also going to start my tracker and I can follow that blood trail. So that's sometimes it's just cool to go back and relive that.
Right.
Sometimes, heaven forbid you run out of blood, you're not able to find the animal. It's nice to be able to go back and see, all right, here's the path of travel. This is kind of where they were going so far. Yeah. Then you can look ahead and say, oh man, he's probably going to stay in this area or keep going this direction.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or if you have to grid search, you can see where you were grid searching and make sure you were covering all the right areas. I said that was the last one. There's one more. The other cool thing is if you're hunting in a group, you can share markups with people. Mm-hmm. So I can text Tori a waypoint of my tree stand and say, hey, sit here in the morning. There's a big buck coming through. I've never had that happen. If I did, I wouldn't be sending you there.
I've not gotten that waypoint yet.
But the nice thing is I can have my track that I use to walk into the deer stand so that Tori is able to find his way in there in the dark and not stomp all over and scare all the animals. Or maybe I want him to take a certain path so that the wind doesn't blow into the deer's bedding area or something. I can have a saved waypoint, a saved track. I can text those to Tori. So
as long as you have service, you're going to be able
as long as I have service.
Yeah. So if you're offline, if you don't have service somewhere, that feature isn't going to work. So this is something that's more like, hey, I'm back at the hotel while you're coming up here. This is where I want you to meet me.
Yeah. So how you do that, tap on the waypoint or the shape or whatever you want to share, and then hit that share button down at the bottom. I'm not going to send that because it's going to pull up all my contact information and they don't want me to broadcast that. But then you can text it, you can share it on Facebook, you can email it, you can, any place where you can send text to somebody.
Social media.
Yeah, you can share that with them. I used it when I killed an elk a couple years ago. Had enough service, was able to send out to a couple coworkers here at onX, say, hey, I got one down, park here, here's where the elk is, and they came and helped me pack it out. Super awesome.
And if we aren't friends anymore, you have the ability to unshare too, which is
nice. Yep. And so you can take that away from somebody. If I don't want Tori to have that waypoint, I can pull it away. And the nice thing is he can't share it with anybody.
Right.
So Tori can't then go and turn around and share it with his brother or somebody else. I own the waypoint. I control who has access to it. I am going to stop sharing on my phone here. And I'm going to pull up our web map on my computer here. So give me one moment. So as Tori mentioned before, when you buy an onX membership, or even if you have a basic one, you have access to the phone app that we were just looking at, but you also have access to the onX web map on your computer. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I go to onxmaps.com, I log in, and you can see here I am looking at a map. Looks pretty similar, right? What this is really cool for is I use it a lot for scouting. It's a bigger screen. I'm able to see a lot more information or a lot more detail, I guess, more easily. This phone screen's a little bit small, great for in the field, but if I'm really scouting out, like, all right, where do I want to go this weekend? Where do I want to go look for some pheasants? I'm going to pull it up on my computer because I can get a bigger lay of the land and be able to see a lot more at once. So what I really wanted to show here is our different base maps. In the lower right-hand corner, I have a button. If I back up, it says HYB in 2D. And you're going to have this on your phone as well. So if you're looking on your phone, this functions much the same. I'm just demonstrating it on the computer. Right now, I'm going to go over to our satellite map. This is what most people are familiar with. It shows you the satellite imagery. If I wanted to see the topography and see those contour lines, I tap topo. So now you can see all the different elevation changes. I can see how steep everything is. I can see, yep, I don't want to climb this trail because that red is really steep there that we looked at earlier. What I use most of the time is the hybrid map. Now, this one's really cool because you can see the satellite imagery, so I can see where the trees are, where the vegetation is, but I can also see the contour lines. So it kind of gives me the best of both worlds. A time where I might only use topo is come springtime, when I like to do a lot of spring bear hunting. It's one of my favorite things. Most of the time we're looking for south-facing slopes because the snow melts first, and that's where the green grass is. I personally find it a little bit easier to find that south-facing slope with just the topography. Like I can see.
See,
it's
for me,
south
I'm
here.
using topo for more trying to find water features.
Yes.
And I feel like they pop a little bit better.
Yep.
With just that
So
topo.
if you can see, let me find a good one.
If you see like a blue kind of dotted line, that's
Mhm.
usually indicating water could be found there.
Yep.
So it's a runoff, or it's usually in a coulee, like you said.
Yep. So here's some of these where in the spring, there's probably water running down some of these. Come August, they're probably dry.
Right.
That's snow melt streams. A more permanent type stream is going to be this solid blue line here. Satellite imagery I use if I really want to zoom in and not have to worry about seeing those topo lines and really look at some detail. That's when I use satellite. Honestly, satellite's my least used base map. I use topo and hybrid the most. And then kind of to finish up on our base maps there, we've got 3D as well. Now, 3D functions, in my opinion, is most useful on your web map. You can use it on your phone. On the iPhone, it is a little bit limited. We are working to kind of upgrade that functionality to make it mirror the computer more closely. But again, for me, most of the time when I'm looking at 3D is when I'm scouting, when I'm looking for, again, those south-facing slopes. It's real easy for me to see, oh, hey, here's a south-facing slope that's open. This might be a spot bears are going to hang out at. But I also can look and see, man, how am I going to look at that, right? There's nothing over here for me to glass at on that location. If I go up here, now I can see, we're looking across East Missoula here. I can probably see really cool over here, but that's a long ways away. So the 3D, I can still drag the map. I can zoom in, zoom out like I do normally. If you're looking at this on your phone and you're saying, man, I can't see the public-private, it's because we don't have, at least on iPhones, we don't have that information in there just yet. Like I said, we're working to upgrade that. We should have that for you soon-ish. What am I forgetting about 3D?
Exaggeration.
Let's talk about exaggeration. Down at the bottom here is this exaggeration slider. So what's cool about this is I can exaggerate the 3D. Now you can see those mountains got a lot taller. So this is useful for, even when it's in 3D, when you go out there in real life, it's like, that's a lot steeper than I thought it was. So what I like to do, and I actually got this from one of the guys at Eastman's Hunting Journals, a magazine. He said he's found if he puts it at about 25-30%, about a third of the way, that gives him a good sense of, all right, when I'm standing there, this is kind of going to be the perspective.
Yeah.
Because it's always looks steeper in real life. So he looks at it that way. This is also cool if you're living in an area without mountains, or maybe you have some more rolling hills where our 3D doesn't quite show that much detail. And you can say, well, 3D is great, but everything looks flat in my area, but I know it's more hilly than what onX is representing. You can turn up that exaggeration because A lot of times, if you're deer hunting and you're in a relatively flat area, the difference of a couple feet could be a travel corridor. They
Right.
might be following just this little depression, or there might be one kind of minor low spot in between two higher spots. It can help you zero in on those. So that's base maps. We went through that pretty fast in the interest of time. But again, fool around with it. You can't break it. You can always, if I can click the right button, I can always switch back and forth between them. I'm never stuck on them. And should have mentioned this with offline maps. When you save an offline map, you have all three of these on that map. So you don't have to be like, oh man, I want to use topo when I'm out there. I have to have it turned on when I save it. Doesn't matter which one you have turned on when you save it. All three of those options are available offline as well. 3D is not just yet. That's a little more complicated to save for offline use. You can imagine it's a lot more data to download. You've got to do it in 3D. It's one extra dimension.
Right.
So that hopefully down the road, we'll be able to do that. But for right now, your offline maps are just 2 dimensions. Kind of wrapping it up here. One last thing we want to touch on is our search function. So you can do this again on your phone. It'll be in the top right corner. It looks like a magnifying glass icon. You tap on that. On your computer, it's in this top left corner, right above your map layers, if you're seeing that. There's 2 different kind of types of searches you can do in onX. I can search by location. So if I'm going to look for Yellowstone, I have a bunch of different options here. If I just type in Yellowstone, if I'm looking for Yellowstone National Park, the more information I type in, the more accurate my search results are going to be. So there I clicked on Yellowstone National Park and it brings me right over there. If I zoom out, you can see we're in Yellowstone. You can search for national parks, lakes, cities, rivers, monuments, any kind of, for lack of a better term, geographic feature that you want to find. That's going to be your way to search.
This is also where if Jack gave me coordinates, I'd put it in under location. So with location, you can search by landmark, you can search by coordinates, you can search by address. You can be pretty general too. So if you just wanted to go to Shoto, Montana, because you knew when you were a kid you bird hunted there one time, you could search Shoto, which will get you to that. It'll center on that town, but at least it gets you in kind of that general area. Then you can maybe move the map and find what you're looking for.
Yep. So you can search, like Tori said, if we're like, hey, we're going to hunt around Shoto, I'm not going to hunt right here. But if I zoom out, oh, hey, there's some different walk-in areas there. There's some state land. Are there birds up there? That's a little far for me to drive this weekend, but. And like we said earlier, you can also type in coordinates. So GPS coordinates, you can type them in there. It'll take you right to that exact spot. The other type of search is for a landowner. So if I am looking for, let's just say, I'm just going to type in last name Smith. There's 10,000 results for Smith because there's a lot of Smiths. Okay. But you notice it is serving me results for Teton County, Montana, because that's where my map is located. So if you say, hey, I'm looking for John Doe and I know they live in Missouri, move your map to Missouri, and then it's going to show those Missouri John Does first. If your map is in Hawaii, it's going to show you Hawaii first. So if you can kind of get to the general area, that's going to help. And then if I'm looking for Smith, let's say Adam. You know why Adam Smith's famous? He was an economist in the 18th century.
History teacher.
That's economics.
Well, fair.
I taught economics for a year.
But it's in the history.
That's true.
See,
the invisible hand.
Yeah.
That's Adam Smith.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I type in Adam. Now I can see I'm getting these Adam Smiths, and I can see, oh, hey, there's only a few in Montana now. I'm narrowing it down. The more information you can give there, the better your results are going to be. Let's say this first one, just picking at random, Mr. Smith, if you're watching this, I'm not picking on you. Click on it. It's going to put this little icon on the parcel. And just like before, I can query that parcel. get the information for that area. So that was a question we had from some people, was how do I contact a landowner with onX? We don't show phone numbers
No emails.
or emails, mostly because a lot of landowners would not like their phone number to be published out there, especially during the hunting season. If they're just getting their phone ringing off the hook of people asking for, phone permission, we kind of phrase it like, would I like my phone number to be out there for everybody to call? Probably not. So we don't put phone numbers in there, but we give you an address. So now would be a great time, probably, or in the spring, to ask for permission for next year. To start writing letters. We've had people write letters, get great success, because when's the last time you got a letter?
Right.
That's a good way to ask for information. You can also do a Google search, or use the white pages and try to find somebody's phone number that way. That's a good way to do it, but we don't show the phone numbers, just kind of out of respect for the landowners there.
Pretty high level view of the app, pretty
Yep.
quick. And not quite within an hour, but pretty good.
Pretty close. We have a few questions we'll answer. While we're doing that, I'm going to have Dan throw the giveaway link in the chat. So there will be a link in the chat. Click on that, fill out your information. And again, we'll draw 10 winners for those onX Hunt bandanas.
And they'll be contacted by you, right?
Yep.
So you don't need to reach out to us to say,
Yeah,
hey, did I win?
Don't email us to see if you won. I will email you tomorrow. You'll get an email from Jack Headland at onxmaps.com telling you that you were a winner. If you don't hear from me, I'm sorry, but we do these giveaways at most of our master classes. So sign up for a future one. We're still, should have mentioned this, we're still kind of lining out our 2023 schedule. So if you go to our website and look for the masterclass kind of sign up list, there's not much on there right now. We're still finalizing things, but we will put those up there as they get scheduled and finalized. First question, how does Tori get his beard that thick?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Just age. Yeah, I got nothing. I'm actually made of Play-Doh.
Oh, so you just squeeze it out.
Sometimes if it feels a little thin, I'll plug my nose and sneeze and just come right in.
Awesome. All right, enough tomfoolery. Do I need to have layers turned on prior to saving my offline maps? Great question. Previously you did. Now they don't have to be turned on to have them saved. But correct me if I'm wrong, you do need to have that collection turned on.
I think as long as you're going to be in Montana and you're elite member, you have Montana turned on, you should be good.
Yep.
That's for just rule of thumb. Whenever somebody asks me this, via email or on the phone, I say, make the map look how you want it to look when you're in the field.
Yep.
That's going to be your best advice there before you save it.
Yep. Awesome question. And our last live audience question, can we go over wind direction and optimal wind setup? We'll do that real quick here. I'm going to go back to my map. Give me one moment. So here we go. I am going to just come down here.
I don't know if you're sharing.
Oh, I should be sharing. That would probably be helpful.
Well, he's setting that up again, just to touch base as far as the prices go. Our premium one state membership is $29.99, and that's a yearly membership. And then our elite membership is going to give you access to all 50 states. And we have a annual $99.99 a year price, or we have an elite monthly option too. So if you are a guy, you just hunt your property, your place, you don't need a map, but this year you decide you're going to go to South Dakota and go do some bird hunting, and you only need South Dakota for a short period of time, we have an elite monthly membership for $14.99. So that's the way where you get that multiple state access for a short period of time.
So here's how you use the wind direction. I've got, let's just say this parcel of land. Again, I've never been to it. I don't even know if you can legally. It doesn't look like there's any roads to it. The way I mark waypoints on my computer most of the time is I will tap or click on the area, and I go over to my menu here and I click add waypoint. It's down at the bottom of that menu. For right now, I'm just going to save this waypoint. And then once I save it, or if I go back and click on it to pull up this menu, I have this option here that says wind direction. Now there are two different options here for you. I can have it just show the current wind. So it's going to take a little bit to load. It's a 3 mile an hour northwest wind. So wind coming out of the northwest. That's a question we get sometimes. That's where the wind is coming from. Another option for optimal wind is, let's say I have a tree stand here and I know I only want to hunt it on a north, northeast, or northwest wind. I click those areas. That's the optimal direction. I hit apply. And now it's going to be lit up green, saying it's a good wind because it's out of the northwest. If it was a south wind, it would be red, bad wind. If it was out of the west, it would be yellow because might be able to hunt it, marginal wind. So that's a cool way that if I go over in the upper right-hand corner here and click on my wind calendar, that's where I can see all my different, oh, this is my personal account. Nice. I forgot to change it, but it's going to show me here. I have it showing just this waypoint. It's going to tell me what the wind is doing throughout this next week. So that's pretty cool to see. I can see, oh, Saturday, if I don't want to hunt there in the morning, but in the afternoon or evening, it's going to be better wind. So that's our optimal wind feature there. Again, that's almost getting into some 201 stuff, but that's a pretty cool feature there. And Tori touched on it earlier. We're going to wrap up here. I do want to mention a discount that we have for everybody on the call that does not have a current membership. If you're basic or a trial, you can use the promo code app101 to save 30% off your first year's membership. Has to be used on our website, the Google Play Store and Apple iTunes App Store, whatever they're calling it nowadays, the App Store. They don't accept promo codes, so it has to be done at onxmaps.com. There's a box there for the promo code. Type in app101. That'll save you 30% off your first year's membership. If you do have any trouble with that, again, send us an email. We're happy to walk you through that. Make sure you get that discount taken care of.
And again, to clarify, I sometimes we'll get this, well, I don't want to buy on my computer because I want to use my phone. The membership you're purchasing is going to show up on your phone, your tablet, your computer, as long as you're signing in with that same email and password. So it is okay to buy on our computer, on your computer through our website. You're going to have that access on your phone or your tablet.
Yep. There's one more time, the bandana link. If I can have Dan post that one last time in the chat. Now go get after it.
Yeah.
That's all we have for tonight. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Again, if you want to rewatch this, it'll be up on our YouTube page tomorrow morning. It's the onX Hunt YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe to that, you'll be able to see all of our future masterclasses, and all of our past ones are on there too. So we've been doing these for almost a year now. There's some good stuff on there. If you want to kind of get to that 201 level, we've got some species specific ones. It's winter. A lot of hunting seasons are closing down. What better time than to watch a bunch of YouTube videos?
Right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year.
Next year.